Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going way beyond just the typical wellness buzzwords and taking a real deep dive into holistic health.
Interesting area.
We've got a really interesting mix of sources here.
Yeah.
Articles on the principles and practices.
Right, yeah.
Personal stories from folks who swear by things like yoga. And even some pretty hard-hitting research studies.
It's kind of like bridging the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science. Seeing where they, intersect and where they diverge.
Exactly. But here's the big question. Is holistic health just another trendy phrase? Or does it actually hold the key to a more balanced and fulfilling life?
Right.
Can these ancient practices really make a difference in our crazy modern world? That's what we're here to uncover.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people, particularly those who primarily rely on conventional medicine, they approach holistic health with a pretty healthy dose of skepticism.
I get that. I mean, there are definitely some practices out there that seem a bit too good to be true, or maybe they lack the scientific rigor we'd expect. But, in our research, we've also come across practices like specific dietary approaches that are rooted in well-established scientific disciplines like biochemistry.
Right.
It's a nuanced landscape for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's crucial to approach this topic with a critical eye. We need to be discerning about the information we consume. Look for evidence-based research from reputable sources.
For sure. So for our listener, if you're feeling a bit skeptical, that's actually a great starting point. But before you write off holistic health entirely, let's explore the evidence together.
Yeah.
And speaking of evidence, we'll be pointing you to some reliable resources throughout this deep dive.
Right.
Places like the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health or reputable research databases like PubMed. Always good to have those solid references, right?
Absolutely. And to be clear, we're not suggesting that holistic health should replace conventional medical care, especially in emergencies.
Right. It's not about ditching your doctor altogether. It's more about exploring complementary approaches that can work in conjunction with traditional treatments to enhance your overall well-being.
Yeah.
It's about having a more comprehensive toolkit for taking care of yourself.
So before we get into the specifics, let's start by defining what we actually mean by holistic health.
Okay.
And, looking at our sources, there's a recurring theme, this idea of viewing the mind, body, and spirit as interconnected parts of a whole.
It's a completely different perspective from conventional medicine, which tends to focus on isolated symptoms or illnesses. Holistic health seems to take a much broader view.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah.
Instead of simply treating symptoms, it shifts the focus to prevention and addressing the underlying causes of imbalance. It's about understanding the root of the issue, not just putting a Band-Aid on it.
I was struck by one article that argues there's really no such thing as alternative medicine. It claims that if a practice is proven effective through scientific analysis, it's simply considered valid medicine regardless of its origins.
That's an interesting point.
It boils down to evidence-based practices, whether they come from ancient traditions or modern research labs.
Right.
It's about what works, not where it came from.
I think that's a good way to put it.
So under this holistic umbrella, what are some of the specific practices that fall into this evidence-based category?
Sure.
What are we dealing with here?
Our sources cover a pretty wide spectrum of complementary and integrative health practices, things like naturopathy, Ayurveda, acupuncture, chiropractic, aromatherapy,
Wow.
and of course the ever-popular yoga and meditation.
Wow, it's a lot to unpack. Let's break it down a bit, starting with some of the less familiar ones. What exactly is naturopathy?
So naturopathy is all about harnessing the body's natural healing abilities through natural remedies and therapies. It emphasizes a gentle and collaborative approach, working with the body's inherent wisdom.
I noticed that naturopathy seems to be guided by some pretty specific principles.
Yeah, you're right. The article highlights 6 core principles, but one that really jumps out and perhaps challenges conventional thinking is the focus on treating the cause, not the symptom.
That's a big one.
It's a huge shift in perspective.
It makes you think about how we often rush to treat symptoms without addressing the underlying issues. But can you give us a real-world example of how this principle plays out in naturopathic practice?
Well, imagine someone struggling with chronic headaches. A conventional approach might involve pain relievers to mask the pain, but a naturopath might dig deeper, exploring potential triggers like food sensitivities, stress, or hormonal imbalances. They might recommend dietary changes, stress management techniques, or lifestyle modifications to address those root causes. It's about understanding the whole person, not just the headache.
So it's more like detective work, Finding the source of the problem, not just covering it up.
Right.
What about Ayurveda? That one always sounds a bit mysterious.
Ayurveda has roots in ancient India going back thousands of years. It takes a highly personalized approach, using diet herbs and lifestyle recommendations, to balance the body's unique energy or dosha.
Okay.
It's a fascinating system, even if some of its principles haven't been rigorously studied by modern science.
So it's more about tailoring a plan to the individual rather than a one-size-fits-all approach.
Exactly. It's all about understanding your unique constitution and finding what brings you back into balance. But you're right, more research is definitely needed to validate its effectiveness from a scientific perspective.
Makes sense. It's always wise to be cautious and consult with qualified practitioners, especially when exploring these less mainstream practices. Now, let's move on to something I've always been curious about, acupuncture. What's the deal with those needles?
Acupuncture, like Ayurveda, has ancient origins stemming from traditional Chinese medicine. The practice involves inserting very thin needles into specific points along the body's meridians, which are thought to be energy pathways.
So is the idea to stimulate those energy pathways and get things flowing smoothly again?
That's the traditional understanding, yes. But modern research suggests that acupuncture might actually work by influencing the nervous system and connective tissues, potentially triggering the release of pain-relieving endorphins.
So even though the mechanism of action might be different from what was initially believed, the ultimate goal remains the same: to promote healing and balance within the body.
Precisely. It highlights how scientific understanding continues to evolve, even for ancient practices. Now, moving on to another popular practice, we have chiropractic care. This one focuses primarily on the musculoskeletal system.
So it's all about aligning the spine to improve overall health. I know a lot of people who swear by it.
That's the basic premise. Chiropractors believe that misalignments in the spine can impact nerve function and contribute to a wide range of health problems. They use manual adjustments to restore proper alignment and function.
It makes you wonder if our modern lifestyles, all the sitting hunching over screens, might be contributing to more spinal issues than ever before.
It's certainly something to consider. And speaking of how our senses impact our well-being, we have aromatherapy, which uses essential oils extracted from plants to promote both physical and emotional well-being.
I've dabbled in aromatherapy a bit myself, using essential oils and diffusers or for massage, but I've always wondered how much of the benefit is just from the pleasant sense and how much is actual therapeutic effect.
That's a question a lot of people have. The research on aromatherapy is still quite limited, so it's important to approach it with a balanced perspective. Some essential oils have shown promise for certain conditions, but more rigorous studies are needed.
So probably best to enjoy the aromas, but maybe not rely on them for serious therapeutic intervention without consulting a qualified aromatherapist.
Okay, let's move on to two of the most popular and widely accessible holistic practices out there, yoga and meditation.
These are great examples of practices that embody the mind-body connection, so central to holistic health. They've become incredibly popular in recent years, but there's still a lot of confusion about what they actually entail. That's for sure. They seem to be everywhere these days.
Yeah.
So let's break them down, starting with yoga. What are the main benefits people experience?
Yoga is known for its incredible range of benefits, both physical and mental. It improves flexibility, strength, balance, posture, but it goes far beyond the physical. Many people find that yoga helps them manage stress and cultivate a sense of inner peace.
So it's not just about the physical postures then.
Not at all. Yoga incorporates deep breathing techniques and mindfulness, which can significantly reduce stress hormones and improve mood. It's a holistic practice in the truest sense of the word.
I know there are a ton of different styles of yoga out there. Is there one that's best for beginners?
That's right. Some styles are gentle and focus on relaxation, while others are more vigorous and challenging. It really depends on your individual preferences and fitness level. But for beginners, I often recommend starting with a gentle style like hatha or yin yoga to learn the basics and avoid injury.
So there's something for everyone, regardless of their experience or physical ability, that's encouraging to hear.
Absolutely. Even a few minutes of yoga each day can make a difference now onto meditation. What comes to mind when you hear that word?
Honestly, I picture someone sitting cross-legged in complete silence, trying to empty their mind of all thoughts. Is that even possible?
That's a common misconception, and probably why some people find meditation intimidating. Meditation isn't about stopping your thoughts completely. It's more about cultivating awareness of them without judgment, noticing them as they arise without getting swept away by them.
So it's about creating space between you and your thoughts, almost like stepping back and observing them objectively.
Exactly. And there are many different types of meditation, from mindfulness meditation, where you focus on the present moment, to loving kindness meditation, where you cultivate feelings of compassion and goodwill. There's even walking meditation where you bring that same mindful awareness to your movement.
Wow, I had no idea. There were so many variations. But is there any real evidence that meditation actually has tangible benefits, or is it just a nice way to relax?
Well, there's a growing body of research showing that meditation can actually change the brain in positive ways. Studies have found that regular meditation can reduce stress hormones, enhance focus, and even increase gray matter in areas of the brain associated with learning and memory.
Okay, now that's impressive. It's starting to make sense why so many people swear by these practices. But for someone who's completely new to meditation, where do they even begin?
Starting with short sessions, even just a few minutes a day, and focusing on the breath can be incredibly helpful. There are tons of guided meditations available online or through apps, which can make it easier to get started. The key is to be patient with yourself and find a practice that resonates with you.
Small steps, consistency, and finding what works for you sounds like solid advice for any new endeavor, not just meditation. Now, I'm really curious to hear about those personal stories we have from people who practice yoga. What kind of experiences are they sharing?
We have a couple of interesting ones. One story that stands out is Bridget Fletcher's experience using a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, through a program called NutriSense.
Wait, what does a glucose monitor have to do with yoga? I'm a little confused.
Bridget's story isn't directly about yoga, but it highlights the interconnectedness of different aspects of holistic health. She used the data from the CGM to make changes to her diet and lifestyle, which had a significant positive impact on her perimenopause journey.
So even though it's not directly related to yoga or meditation, it shows how taking a more holistic approach, even in one area of life, can lead to positive health outcomes in other areas.
Exactly. It reinforces the idea that everything is connected and that even small changes can have ripple effects throughout our entire system.
That's a powerful example of how a seemingly isolated change can create positive shifts elsewhere. Now, you mentioned another personal story about someone named Lucas and a silent meditation retreat. What was that about?
Luke had shared an interesting experience about how improving his physical posture actually enhanced his meditation practice during this retreat.
So how did posture play a role in his meditation? I wouldn't have thought the two were so closely related.
Well, Lucas mentioned that initially he struggled with discomfort during the long periods of sitting meditation. He found that when he focused on aligning his spine and relaxing his body, he was able to stay more present and focused during his meditation sessions.
It makes sense that if you're physically uncomfortable, it's harder to quiet the mind.
Exactly. It reinforces the idea that the physical and mental aspects of our being are deeply intertwined and that neglecting one can impact the other. These personal stories really bring to life the concept that holistic health is a journey, not a destination.
I love these personal anecdotes. They make these practices feel more relatable and less intimidating. It's not about achieving some perfect state of being, but about continuously learning, experimenting, and finding what works best for you.
Exactly. And that journey is unique for each individual. It's about embracing the process and celebrating the small wins along the way.
I'm really starting to grasp this holistic health concept. It's not just about specific practices or techniques, but a way of life, a way of thinking about your health and well-being in a more interconnected way.
You're absolutely right. It's about weaving holistic principles into the fabric of your daily life.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So what does that actually look like? What are some of the key elements of a truly holistic lifestyle?
Well,
So we're talking about more than just adding like a yoga class or a meditation session here and there.
right.
It's about a deeper shift in how we approach our well-being
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis.
Exactly. Think of it as integrating holistic principles into everything you do,
Yeah.
from the foods you choose to how you manage stress to the quality of your sleep.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. You mentioned food. So nutrition is a big piece of this holistic puzzle.
Absolutely. It's not just about what you eat, but also how you eat.
So mindful eating is part of the equation.
For sure, paying attention to your hunger cues, savoring your food, and eating with intention can have a huge impact on your digestion and overall well-being. It's about being present with your food rather than just, mindlessly scarfing it down.
I know I'm guilty of that, eating lunch at my desk while scrolling through emails. But in terms of what we're actually putting into our bodies, what kind of diet aligns with a holistic approach?
A balanced whole foods diet is key. Our sources emphasize ditching the processed junk and focusing on nutrient-rich foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats, lean protein.
Okay.
Think real food as close to its natural state as possible.
So basically, the kind of diet our grandparents would recognize.
Right.
But are there specific dietary approaches within that framework that might be particularly beneficial?
Some of our sources highlight plant-based or anti-inflammatory diets as being particularly supportive of holistic health. But again, it's about finding what works best for you, your body, and your lifestyle.
It's that personalized approach again. So we've covered nutrition, mindful eating. What else is essential for this holistic lifestyle we're talking about?
We can't forget about sleep. Quality sleep is absolutely crucial for our physical and mental restoration. It allows our bodies to repair and recharge, and our minds to process and consolidate information.
Yeah, I know. I definitely feel the effects when I don't get enough sleep. Groggy, irritable, can't focus. But you mentioned earlier that practices like yoga and meditation can actually improve sleep quality. How does that work?
Both yoga and meditation help calm the nervous system and reduce stress, which are often at the root of sleep problems. By incorporating these practices into your routine, you're essentially training your mind and body to relax more deeply, which makes it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep.
So it's not just about counting sheep, it's about creating a more conducive internal environment for restful sleep. But what about those of us who struggle with sleep even when we're not particularly stressed? Are there other holistic approaches that can help?
Absolutely. Establishing good sleep hygiene habits is crucial. This means things like sticking to a regular sleep schedule, creating a relaxing bedtime routine, and making sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, and cool.
Those sound like simple enough changes, but I imagine they can make a big difference.
Yeah.
I'm noticing that a lot of these holistic practices seem to overlap and support each other. It's not like they're isolated compartments, but rather interconnected pieces of a larger puzzle.
That's a great observation, and that interconnectedness is at the heart of holistic health. It's about recognizing that every aspect of your being, mental, emotional, and even spiritual, influences your overall well-being.
It's about seeing the whole picture, not just focusing on one isolated part. This holistic perspective really empowers you to take a more proactive and integrated approach to your health, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about making choices that nourish your whole being, not just addressing symptoms when they arise. It's about creating a lifestyle that supports your well-being on all levels.
Yeah, it's not about waiting for something to go wrong before taking action. It's about nurturing your well-being every single day. And that can involve simple everyday practices, right?
Exactly. It doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as incorporating some yoga stretches into your morning routine, taking mindful breaks throughout the day to reconnect with your breath, or practicing gratitude before bed.
Small changes, but consistent action. That seems to be a recurring theme in holistic health. But I imagine it can be challenging to stay motivated and inspired on this journey, especially when you're doing it solo.
You're right, community and support can make a huge difference. Connecting with like-minded individuals, whether it's joining yoga classes, participating in meditation groups, or even just having friends who share your interest in holistic health, can provide that extra boost of motivation and accountability.
It's easier to stick with something when you feel a sense of belonging and shared purpose. But I think it's also important to acknowledge that there are a lot of misconceptions and even myths surrounding holistic health. It can be hard to separate fact from fiction.
Absolutely. And it's natural for people to be skeptical, especially when they're encountering unfamiliar practices or ideas. So let's take a moment to debunk some of the most common myths we came across in our research.
Okay, myth busting time. What's the first one on the list?
Well, one persistent myth is that yoga is only for flexible people, or that you have to be super athletic to even attempt it.
I've definitely heard that one before. It's intimidating for those of us who aren't exactly gymnasts.
The truth is, yoga is for everybody, regardless of flexibility or fitness level. There are modifications for every pose, and the focus is on connecting with your body and moving in a way that feels good for you, not contorting yourself into impossible shapes.
It's about honoring your body, not pushing it beyond its limits. What about meditation? Are there any common misconceptions there?
We touched on this earlier, but one of the biggest myths about meditation is that it's about emptying your mind completely. This misconception often makes people feel like they're failing at meditation when thoughts inevitably arise.
Right, that's probably why so many people find meditation intimidating. They think they're supposed to achieve some state of complete mental blankness, which is probably impossible for most of us.
Exactly. But as we discussed, meditation isn't about eradicating thoughts. It's about learning to observe them without judgment, allowing them to come and go like clouds passing through the sky.
It's about creating space between you and your thoughts so you're not constantly swept away by them. That sounds pretty liberating, actually.
It can be incredibly empowering, and it's worth emphasizing that meditation isn't limited to sitting in silence. There are so many different forms, from walking meditation to guided meditations to Mindful movement practices like Tai Chi or Qigong.
So there's really a type of meditation out there for everyone, just like there's a style of yoga for everyone.
Right.
It's about finding what resonates with you and fits into your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of exploring different practices, are there any other holistic modalities beyond yoga and meditation that you think people might find beneficial?
Our research touched on some energy healing modalities like Reiki and chakra balancing, which are becoming increasingly popular.
Okay, for those of us who are unfamiliar with those practices, can you explain what they involve?
These modalities focus on the subtle energy systems of the body, which are often referred to as qi in traditional Chinese medicine or prana in yoga.
And what's the purpose of working with these energy systems?
The idea is that blockages or imbalances in these energy systems can contribute to physical or emotional disease by clearing those blockages and restoring balance to the energy field day. Practitioners aim to promote healing and well-being on all levels.
Interesting. And how do these energy healing practices actually work? I'm picturing something like a mystical laying on of hands.
You're not far off. Practitioners use various techniques, often involving gentle touch or energy channeling, to clear blockages and restore balance to the energy field.
So it's a very subtle and energetic approach. But is there any scientific evidence to support these practices, or are they purely based on ancient traditions?
That's a great question. While energy healing modalities have been practiced for centuries in various cultures, scientific research on their effectiveness is still emerging.
So it's an area where more research is needed to really understand how and why these practices might be beneficial. But I think it's fascinating how holistic health encompasses such a wide range of practices, from ancient traditions to modern techniques. It really speaks to the multifaceted nature of human well-being.
I couldn't agree more. And it's exciting to see how holistic health is evolving and gaining recognition as a valuable complement to conventional medicine. It's not about replacing one with the other, but rather integrating the best of both worlds to create a truly comprehensive approach to health and wellness.
Now, I'm curious about the overall impact of adopting a holistic approach.
Hmm.
What kind of transformations do people experience when they start incorporating these practices and principles into their lives?
One of the most profound shifts people report is a deepened connection between the mind and body.
Can you elaborate on that? What does that actually look like in someone's life?
It's about developing a heightened awareness of your physical sensations, your emotions, your thought patterns, and how they all interact and influence each other. You start to tune into your body's wisdom and recognize the signals it's sending you.
So instead of feeling like your mind and body are separate entities, you start to experience them as a unified whole.
Precisely. And this enhanced mind-body connection can be incredibly empowering because it allows you to make choices that are truly aligned with your well-being.
So for example, you might start to notice how certain foods make you feel energized and focused, while others leave you feeling sluggish and drained.
Exactly. Or you might notice how certain activities like spending time in nature or listening to calming music have a profound effect on your mood and stress levels. This awareness empowers you to make choices that nourish your body, mind, and spirit.
It's about becoming more attuned to your inner landscape and making choices that support your overall well-being. What other transformations do people experience as they delve deeper into this holistic path?
Our sources highlight the importance of cultivating emotional resilience, which is essentially the ability to bounce back from challenges and setbacks with greater ease and grace.
So it's about developing coping mechanisms to deal with stress and adversity in a healthier way.
Exactly. And holistic practices like yoga and meditation can be incredibly helpful in building that resilience. They equip you with tools for managing stress, calming your nervous system, and processing difficult emotions in a more constructive way.
So it's not about avoiding challenges or pretending that everything is always fine. It's about developing the inner strength and resources to navigate life's inevitable ups and downs with more awareness and equanimity.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and that emotional resilience spills over into all areas of life, your relationships, your work, your overall sense of self-worth. It allows you to show up more fully and authentically no matter what challenges you face.
I can see how that would be a game changer in so many ways. What other positive impacts do these holistic practices have on people's lives?
Our sources mention a range of benefits from improved sleep quality and enhanced focus to increased creativity and a greater sense of purpose and meaning in life. There's even research suggesting that holistic practices can support healthy aging and longevity.
Wow, it's pretty amazing. It seems like these practices have the potential to touch every aspect of our being.
They really do, but it's important to remember that holistic health is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's about continuously exploring, learning, and adapting these practices to suit your individual needs and preferences.
So it's not about achieving some perfect state of health or following a rigid set of rules, but rather finding what works for you and integrating it into your life in a way that feels sustainable and enjoyable.
Exactly. It might involve experimenting with different yoga styles, trying various meditation techniques, or incorporating mindful eating practices into your daily routine. It's a process of self-discovery and empowerment.
It's about creating a lifestyle that nourishes your whole being and allows you to thrive. And speaking of thriving, I'm curious, what are some of the ways people share this holistic approach with others? Is it about encouraging friends and family to try yoga or meditation? It seems like there's a natural ripple effect. When someone starts embracing a more holistic lifestyle, do they become like wellness evangelists trying to convert everyone around them?
Not necessarily. It's more about sharing what works for them and letting others discover what resonates with their own needs and values.
Right.
It could be as simple as inviting a friend to a yoga class,
Yeah.
sharing a favorite healthy recipe,
Right.
or talking about how meditation has helped them manage stress.
So it's less about preaching and more about planting seeds,
Exactly.
letting others see the positive impacts and inspiring them to explore further on their own.
It's about empowering others to take ownership of their well-being and find their own unique paths to health and happiness.
As we've been diving into these sources, I've noticed a theme that goes beyond individual transformation.
Yeah.
It's almost like holistic health has the potential to create a shift in consciousness, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole.
That's a fascinating observation and one that's echoed in some of our sources. One article talks about yoga, for example, as a path to self-realization, a journey of uncovering your true nature and connecting with something larger than yourself.
So it's not just about physical postures and breathing exercises, but a deeper exploration of who you are and your place in the interconnected web of life.
Precisely, and that exploration can lead to a sense of interconnectedness with all beings and a deeper understanding of the unity that underlies all of existence. It's about recognizing that we're all part of something much greater than ourselves.
That's a beautiful and profound concept. It seems like holistic health has the potential to not only transform individuals, but also to create a more compassionate, harmonious, and interconnected world.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that's why it's so important to keep learning, sharing, and evolving our understanding of holistic health. It's an ongoing journey of discovery, both for ourselves and for the collective.
I have to say, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. I'm feeling inspired to explore these practices more deeply and integrate them into my own life.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, it's not about striving for perfection or becoming some kind of health guru. It's about taking small steps, being patient with yourself, and enjoying the journey.
Great advice as we wrap up. I'm curious to hear what stood out to you from all of these sources. What were
Yeah.
some of the most memorable or surprising insights?
One thing that really struck me was the emphasis on interconnectedness, how every aspect of our being and even our external environment influences our overall well-being. It's a reminder to approach health in a more holistic and integrated way, recognizing that everything is connected.
Yeah, that's definitely a recurring theme throughout all of these practices and principles. It's about seeing the bigger picture and understanding how seemingly isolated choices can have ripple effects throughout our entire system.
Exactly. It invites us to move beyond a compartmentalized view of health and embrace a more interconnected and holistic perspective.
This deep dive has definitely expanded my perspective on health and well-being. I'm starting to see how these practices can be woven into the fabric of everyday life, creating a ripple effect of positive change, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us.
And speaking of positive change, I'd like to leave our listener with a thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay.
Given this interconnectedness we've been discussing, what small but meaningful change can you make today to cultivate a more holistic approach to your own life?
That's a great question to reflect on. It's a personal invitation to take what we've explored today and apply it in a way that feels authentic and meaningful. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of holistic health. It's been an enlightening journey.
It's been a pleasure exploring these fascinating sources with you. May this deep dive inspire you to embark on your own journey of holistic well-being.